Okay, we're into an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we actually have a bit of a production follow-up for you guys from the brand LIBERUM. A little about them. They're designed in Italy and they're created to be assembled to suit your mood. The watch allows you to choose the color of the dial and the case. You can also work out the pairings any way you want, creating multiple configurations. It's really just a collection that can easily be increased in an economical and sustainable way, right? You can get this really cool modular setup where you essentially are choosing a piece that lays underneath that kind of screws in, and then everything else can just kind of bolt in with quick release spring bars and whatnot. So pretty cool. If you guys are new to the concept, definitely look back. I do a full kind of prototype preview where I do a lot of mixing up the pieces and matching them. But here we're just going to follow up and take a look at how the production units actually turned out versus, how the original prototypes looked. And I thought the prototypes were pretty impressive. So it is always nice to get a full hands-on with the product that folks could, potentially have received if they had ordered based off of that original Kickstarter. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics design when you're looking for something within this space. Of course, you're going to want a versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is the LIBERUM DMD001, and it's a super versatile watch with the fact that it's built on this fully modular platform. And it was originally funded on Kickstarter. You can get these now for $251 direct, which is quite a great deal. Especially considering that it does come with a hacking hand windable Seiko Instruments NH35 movement. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so as you can see, pretty clean aesthetic. I decided to opt for the white on white, and I think it's really cool. Very clean, very different. I think the market has definitely kind of moved on from being solely obsessed with vintage inspired watches. I think something more contemporary and modern is always going to be really fresh feeling. And as you guys can see, although this is very monochromatic and very subdued and subtle, I guess maybe not so subtle considering it's an all white watch, but it is rather subdued, right? In that case, I just think that it still finds a way to be, a pretty cool looking watch. And one of the things that's probably gonna jump out to you is going to be the fitment on the integrated strap, because that was something they were working to improve. And I will say this does look better than it did on the original prototype, but I think still could use a bit of dialing in, as this fit here just seems to be a touch inconsistent with the other corner. I feel like this corner is fit a little bit better. Same for here, a little bit of inconsistency. And again, based off of just this piece sticks out a little bit more here than this side does. But overall, obviously, if you're wearing it, it's going to be butting up in different ways, in terms of the way that it's going to fit. So, that's one of the things. Also, it's not a super expensive watch. Also, it is a watch that is, mainly constructed out of, Thermo-Plastic Elastomer, which is going to be a TPE. So the fitment isn't going to be the same as a steel watch, but I think they did a good enough job. I've definitely had, and I'm sure you guys have also had watches of similar kind of material. And again, this isn't meant to be, some very luxurious watch. It's really meant to be something fun and something different. And I think they really nail that. Now, in terms of the dimensions, 42 millimeters in diameter, 11.9 millimeters thick, and 48.5 millimeters lug to lug. It does have a sapphire crystal, which is flat and does have an inner AR coating, as you guys can see there. And you can also notice there's just a touch of metal there, which is nice. So there is going to be a bit of steel on that chapter ring, of course, also on the crown, and the construction itself for this module that can come in and out. Also, you'll notice an integrated 60-minute indexed bezel, which I think is really cool. And it's kind of, with the markings, they're there when you want to look for them. And when you don't, they don't stand out and they don't high contrast and they don't really distract, I think, from that more minimalist aesthetic, which I can appreciate. The crown is push-pull, although I will say it is tough to kind of get in there and get some leverage just because of how tight the tolerance is. I feel like the prototype actually had a looser tolerance, which is not, you would think is going to be not as good. But in this case, this area, the crown is butted up quite tightly. So it does take a very, deliberate effort to pop that out. And of course, I'm going to use my nail there to get it out to the first position. And then if I want to take it out to the, to hack it, then I get it there. And then I just get it going. And then to wind it, I will say that, yeah, you can wind it. But again, with how tight it is butted up to that TPE case, it definitely does give you a little bit of friction. And I think if there was a little bit of gap there, you'd have a little bit of gap, which wouldn't be great, but also you would have a little bit, less friction. So we can see there, I think the steel on steel, in terms of that, it's sitting nice, but I do believe it's going to be more so I'm going to get it to focus here. It's going to be more so these little kind of crown guards that come up. They're not crown guards, they're underneath the crown, but the stem guards that come up that I think are giving you just a little bit of friction from that perspective. Now, the movement inside, as you guys can see, is a Japanese Seiko Instruments automatic NH35A, and it has a 41-hour power reserve and beats at 3 Hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour. It is nice to have that display case back. And one thing you're probably noticing is that it does say 50 meters of water resistance, which is weird because these are supposed to be 100 meters of water resistance. So I reached out to the brand and they did say that was just an issue from their supplier. They put 50 meters on like half of the first batch and then they corrected it by the second batch. So for the early adopters, if you purchased one of these, don't be alarmed. It actually still is 100 meters of water resistance thanks to extra gaskets that they upgraded from the prototype. I think they were considering doing a screw down crown and ultimately just went with the push pull crown for ease of use. And yeah, as long as the crown is pushed in, 100 meters is definitely going to be good to go. That means when it's pushed in, those gaskets are engaged. And I think what can be lost on a lot of folks is that's what's keeping the waterproofness. It's not necessarily the screwed threads. It's the fact that the crown is engaging those gaskets. So with that, some other details, guys. This does have a really cool, crisp, clean printed dial. You do get the date at 3 o'clock, as you can see there. And yeah, the hands themselves are painted. And this does use, I believe, C1 Swiss Super Luminova. So it's going to be render very white in daylight. Let me just dust it off right there real quick. And then in darkness, it's going to glow a green hue. And then we get to this this bracelet. It does have that integrated style, but which, as you can see, interestingly enough, it does come apart, and that's where you would actually unscrew this, and you would kind of take out this module, and it has a little stem, and it's going to pop in and out. The crystal comes with it and everything, and this is just kind of the housing for it. And then, of course, you have another screw on the bottom. And then right here, you can see the nice thing is they've went ahead and reinforced very nice and cleanly this strap on this end. There we go. So you guys can see it does have that there added a bit of hard plastic. You do have that piece there, and essentially what you're going to do is you place that in, and then at an angle, well, you want to make that obviously get in there, and then at an angle you notch that back, and bam, it was that easy, even reaching around a tripod. So very clean, and again, it is an integrated setup, but the nice thing is you can actually swap out straps. They provide them, of course. And And they are all going to have this, similar look to them. And in terms of this integrated polyurethane strap, it does have the quick release spring bars, signed buckle, as well as a signed keeper there, as you guys can see. There we go. So nicely signed on both ends, and then these are both floating, so there's nothing keeping those stationary, so you can position them as you would like. Also nice contours here, nicely signed underneath with some nice pockets for breathing and moisture wicking. And yeah, it does have a nice taper from about 27 millimeters down to about 20 millimeters. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this 42 millimeter diameter watch actually wears pretty nicely, guys. I don't think it's really in that oversized range. I think it's more of a full-sized piece. Of course, it's definitely more sporty, more fun. And the nice thing is it definitely has the specs to back it up. You're getting sapphire. You have a hacking hand windable movement. Of course, this cool TPE construction around the that little modular piece there in terms of the timekeeping device that you can actually port over to different models if you wanted to, different colorways, and really mix things up. And I did want to just kind of showcase it here in the white setup, just because it's going to be kind of a good baseline, and you guys can also get a good look at the details in terms of colorization. Now, of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, it's just going to make this thing look a lot bigger than it actually is. Check that out. Think about when you're looking through the peephole through your door. There's a bit of, again, that perspective distortion. So what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can still get a detailed look, but just at a bit of a truer aspect ratio. And as you can see, although this is not going to be a small watch by any means, it's definitely not. Again, I don't feel it's oversized. I think it's nicely balanced and sculpted in terms of those proportions. Yeah, the scale is going to be on the larger side at 42 millimeters, but again, that's not anything crazy huge. And it's also definitely not going to be considered small. So if you have a larger wrist, I think you'll be able to enjoy this watch as well. And I think the profile looks really clean, guys. Check that out. It drapes around the wrist nicely. Again, this is not some luxury piece. I know, that integrated porthole style watch, we do think very much luxury thanks to classics from Gerald Genta, that he did for Audemars Piguet as well as Patek Philippe. But I think it's cool to have something, at this level that's just going to be a nice kind of beater watch, right? This would be probably more comparable to something like a G-Shock, but with a truly analog mechanical movement, which I think is really fun. So this could be definitely something that you could absolutely enjoy more as just a grab and go kind of fun rough and tumble watch, which I think is cool. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, as you can see, pretty nice loom, guys, especially considering it's just printed. I think they did a good job in terms of giving you just a little bit more surface area and making those plots pretty wide. Of course, it's going to be lower contrast in daylight, but in the darkness, it's nice to see that real pop of legibility. Now, one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, guys. Check that out. Still very legible. And even if we get into some high, some harsh lighting here, it still doesn't truly wash out. I think there's a good level of that off-whiteness, but not necessarily an ivory off-white. I think it's more of a kind of cool gray tone to it. And I think it looks really, really neat. And I have to say, it's a colorway where I think the all-white layout, you can kind of be a little bit trepidatious about something like this. But I think with the tone that they use, this will actually age really well and kind of take on a really interesting look to it. And of course, worst case scenario, you can just replace it with some other colors, which I think is cool. Like, I think there's like 6 different colors, but man, Look at that, still very, very legible. Cool. All right, guys. So getting into the closing thoughts, guys, this does wear, I'd say, like a more premium G-Shock, right? Obviously, there are premium G-Shocks out there, but, you know, in terms of that analog layout, I think it hugs the wrist really well. It feels nicely proportioned. Everything is very pliable, and it does hug the wrist really well. In terms of model variants, there's the white dial, essentially, or a gray dial, and then 6 different case/strap color options, so you can mix and match those. But if you want to do like a monochromatic setup, you could essentially or a tone on tone, you have like 6 different options. So check the links for options, and you can also mix and match on there. So you can actually kind of figure out what type of setup you might want before you order. In terms of comparable models, yeah, there's not really anything else like this on the market today. So for me, guys, the bottom line is this is just a really relevant concept executed. A really cool design aesthetic, and I could easily see this type of concept catching on. And I wouldn't be surprised if I saw more brands kind of enter this space, because I think it's very interesting, that idea that you could swap it over. I mean, here it's more just for the colors, but imagine swapping things over in a different type where you have maybe that singular module, but you're taking it now from an integrated sports watch to putting it in another type of watch, maybe a steel watch, maybe a dive watch, maybe an adventure watch, maybe a dress watch. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and hopefully LIBERUM continue to be successful and move units so they can really expand on, again, I think what is a very, very cool concept, especially within kind of the world today where we're a lot more worried about sustainability and minimalism and not having too many things. Yeah, imagine that. You could just have like one kind of watch that can actually transform into your whole collection. So I don't know, I think that's cool. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Again, this is by no means crazy high level luxury piece, although it does have that kind of more expensive aesthetic to it, and that style, that Genta style integrated. Again, this is only a $250 watch, so when it comes to any shortcomings on the fit and finish, I think they're forgivable at the price point. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.